It's ClipperBlog Live. Fred Katz here after the Clippers' disappointing 104-90 loss to the Heat. Clips fall to 25-13 on the season and finish their 9-game homestand at just 6-3. Joining me on CBL today in Los Angeles, Law Murray. What's up, Law?
What's happening?
And then, wait, oh my gosh, do you hear that? I don't think that couldn't be. It couldn't be. That's Andrew Hahn's music. Andrew, be enthused. You're here.
How does that work when you go with the pro wrestler introduction and like there's just no chemistry coming back, there's no energy coming back? Just
reminds me why you're never on the show, honestly.
Top of the morning to you. Just how's it going?
All right, so let's talk about this game. Clippers were pretty terrible after getting off to a 19-6 start. 8 minutes into the game or whatever it was. 13-0 run for Miami, tied it up, and it was all downhill from there. Clippers never took back the lead. I thought it was a relatively boring game. Law apparently disagrees. Law, what was interesting about this game?
First of all, I cared enough to watch this game to miss most of the second half of the game at Lambeau Field. That's first of all. Second of all, how many times do you see the Clippers have to play back-to-back matinee games? I thought I was very interested to see how they came out, how they were going to progress through this game. Miami, even though they're a team that is not the same as a 4 straight finalists, they're still a team with some pretty good talent to match up with the Clippers starting 5. So I thought this was interesting. The Clippers got off to a great start, like you said, and then we got a surprise visit from somebody. I think that's interesting.
Andrew, so what went wrong tonight? Why? I mean, they got destroyed in rebounds. They got wrecked on the boards from pretty much every angle. They weren't really getting the loose balls. They looked like a team that was playing a Sunday early game after spending it out on Saturday night, basically. And I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's what they looked like today. Andrew, what went wrong?
I'm gonna give Law a bit of props. Like I was subtly needling him that this game was not interesting at all, but I forgot that it was a back-to-back matinee from yesterday and today, and that from that aspect it is kind of interesting, but also it's the same reason it's not interesting. The Clippers had a bit of a blowout yesterday against the Mavericks, and then they came in today, looked sharp very early, and then completely fell apart for the rest of the. It's everything that was exhibited in today's games kind of reaffirms what we know about the Clippers this season. The starters can be really good; they can be outrageously good. They went up 19-6 early in the first quarter before there was those weird shot clock quirks that caused like a 2, 3, 4 minute delay in the game, and then like Miami started to come back and run their stuff. And if the bench doesn't produce, then it's all on the starters' backs to kind of build the lead, sustain it, and then increase it enough that they can actually sit, so that the reserves don't give all of their points away while they're out of the game.
I think the biggest thing there, Hassan Whiteside came off the bench in the middle of that 13-point deficit for Miami. And when we think about the Miami Heat, they've been a team that it's been all Chris Bosh in the middle for the most part. It was almost like how we talked about the Dallas Mavericks. Their interior presence is limited to Tyson Chandler. So to see a young, athletic big man come in and play competent basketball next to Chris Bosh for stretches, I don't see how the Clippers, especially second game off the back-to-back, I don't see how they were any kind of prepared for that. And 23 points for Hassan Whiteside, 16 rebounds. The Clippers bench, the entirety of the Clippers bench, 15 points, 7 rebounds, and just right there, that's your matchup right there. And they just didn't look prepared.
They also got destroyed on the boards, which I got to bring up, and then Andrew, I'll let you make your point. But I just looked it up because the numbers just came out on NBA.com, and the Clippers only had They grabbed 37% of available rebounds today. That is so bad. I mean, that's getting destroyed. Andrew, why don't you make your point?
Yeah, I guess I'll follow up those numbers with more numbers before I go back to whatever point I was going to make. Miami had 41.7 offensive rebounding percent in today's game, which is outrageous. So they got almost half of all of their missed shots, is what that boils down to. And the Clippers had what does this say? 16.2% offensive rebounding percentage. I think in the first half, the Miami Heat had more offensive rebounds than the Clippers did defensive rebounds, that is just such a sad thing. But Law mentioned Hassan Whiteside, and I think that's kind of he's the shining spot of this game. It's not necessarily for the Clippers, but I mean, it goes to one of the flaws in the Clippers in that they don't really have front court depth in the way that you would think. One of the big selling points of Spencer Hawes is that he has complementary skill sets to Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan in that, if he's playing with DeAndre, then Spencer Hawes has some range to him so he can shoot from the outside. And when he's playing with Blake Griffin, he's not a defender, but he's literally just a big person. So just being big and around the basket helps protect it to some capacity. The thing that I've been noticing with Hawes, and I know that a lot of people have been incredibly down on Hawes. I'm not really one of them because I guess I've had like a lower expectation of what Hawes was going to be before coming into the season, and I don't think you can play Spencer Hawes and Blake Griffin together. Blake Griffin has regressed as a defender, I think, this season than he did towards the second half of last year, where Blake and DeAndre were clicking on all cylinders and they were making those rotations seamlessly. Blake was a much more confident pick-and-roll defender. He would hedge and recover much quicker. His hedge and recovery this year, I think, has been pretty close to what it was when he was under Vinny Del Negro. It's been very poor. And that's really what's causing a lot of these problems when they transition from the starting unit over to the bench. And even with Doc shortening the rotation and giving less minutes to the bench players in the past few games, when they go with Spencer Hawes and Blake Griffin, it causes a lot of defensive issues, and it reverts into a lot of what the issues that just happens when the bench only is in, which is if they're not outscoring the opponent when they're on the floor, then they're in huge trouble because they can't really stop anyone.
So DeAndre needs to play 48 minutes is basically what you're saying.
DeAndre needs to play 48 minutes, or the other thing I posited the other day is, what if the Clippers had two Matt Barneses? Basically two slightly above average small forwards that can shoot a little bit, that can defend, that can cut, just smart defenders. That would probably be enough to stem the tide of whatever onslaught the Clippers face when a primary bench unit is out there.
Well, I was talking to Patrick on GChat, Patrick James of ClipperBlog fame, and Patrick brought up an interesting idea, which is, is the Austin Rivers talk, which we'll get to a little bit later. People are saying it's a free look at Rivers or whatever, but that's not true. The Clippers have to give up salary in order to get him because Rivers makes $2.5 million or $2.4 million this year, and the Clippers only have $1.7 million of room, so the math doesn't add up. As teams start unloading players and figuring out a deal, then other players that end up coming in, and so Patrick and I were talking about potentially getting a Jay Crowder in there or something like that. So.
Wait, no, hold on. Are we already getting into like how to fix this stuff? Because I still want. There's more to talk about this game. Like, we've only scratched the underchin of Hassan Whiteside. Now you're like wanting to talk about rumors and other stuff.
Okay, so scratch Hassan Whiteside some more. Get your scratch on.
Wait, Law, is there anything else you want to say about Hassan Whiteside? Because he's just sliding right by this game like it doesn't even matter.
Oh no, tiptoeing in his Jordans and everything, man. Like, shoot. All I can say about Hassan Whiteside is the dude just caught passes, don't look confident, erased DeAndre Jordan from this game. The last time DeAndre Jordan had a game this bad, it was in Memphis during that long road trip. But that's the thing. That's what's so sharp about this game. This is not the Memphis Grizzlies that came in here, and this wasn't the grindhouse. It was the Staples Center chanting for the Miami Heat by the end of this game, and it was the 30th ranked rebound team in the NBA. And Miami has struggled. They haven't had a win streak in a couple of months now. But this might be something that turns the Heat around. As for the Clippers, the Spencer Hawes thing is frustrating to a lot of people. The guy hasn't played 25 minutes all season. I mean, he was paid handsomely. Okay, he was in the same tier as Chris Kaman. You see what Chris Kaman is able to do. He stayed healthy and he's been good. But man, Spencer Hawes hasn't produced in a long time, and it's really hurting the team. DeAndre had an off game here. No one backed him up.
Yeah, DeAndre had an off game. I agree. I think for as solid as Blake has been scoring the ball this season, generally in the World Wide Web, because I know that we talk about it at length on ClipperBlog and ClipperBlog Live, is that he doesn't get enough flack for not rebounding the ball like he used to. I mean, when I was watching this game, I was thinking back to, I believe, his rookie year, technically his second year in the league, when it was going back and forth between Blake Griffin and Kevin Love of like which player was having the longer double-double streak. And Blake Griffin was just, you can write him down for a double-double. And we've seen multiple times this season where Blake is actually very close to triple-doubles, and ironically, it's rebounds that's preventing him from getting a triple-double. They're not necessarily pushing the pace like they have in years past. I know that when Blake gets the ball and he doesn't immediately see Chris Paul, he'll just take it up himself. But last year and the year before, when his rebounding numbers were down, we would say that Blake is leaking out a little more because they're trying to embolden him and give him the freedom to push the ball and move it in transition. This year, he's not necessarily doing that as much, and his rebounding numbers are still down. So it's literally when DeAndre has an off game like tonight in terms of rebounding, there's no one there that can help fill that void. Switching over to Hassan Whiteside for a second, apparently he said on Miami radio postgame that he wanted to get back in the league, and the Clippers wouldn't give him a shot. Doc wouldn't give him a workout. They wouldn't give him the time of day. And I guess that was a motivating factor for why he played so well tonight. Or today, I guess, because it's still the day. One of the reporters asked Doc about this in the postgame. This is the beauty of Twitter, because the news travels immediately because reporters are reading their tweets while they're asking questions. And someone asked Doc in the postgame presser, why didn't they give Hassan Whiteside a shot? Because apparently he just said 20 seconds ago that he didn't get a shot from Doc Rivers or the Clippers, and Doc said that he had no idea who Hassan Whiteside was prior to the season starting or before Miami picked him up. Like, he was never on the Clippers' radar, and there was never any communication between them. So that sounds like a little bit of controversy. My one thing about Hassan Whiteside, because my two center projects for life are Hassan Whiteside and Keith Benson, is Whiteside was drafted in 2010 by the Kings, I believe. Fred, you would know this better than I, since you're a big draft guy.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But so it's 2014 or 2015 now. Does any of this strike you as maybe taking a little bit of like DeAndre Jordan's trajectory? Like, DeAndre Jordan wasn't much his first 2-3 years in the league. Didn't get any minutes. Had to develop. Had to kind of understand the game. Hassan Whiteside is a huge body. He's a really big, relatively athletic individual. This is now his 4th or 5th season as a professional. And maybe for guys that are young coming into the league, they just need that extra bit of time. And the only difference between Whiteside and Jordan is that Jordan had the opportunity to at least sit on a bench and be with a professional team, and other teams gave up on Whiteside too early, and now he actually might just be a viable league average center.
I will further the DeAndre Jordan comparison for you. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think it's kind of extreme, but I will help your argument anyway because it's kind of fun. That Whiteside and DeAndre were both at one point in their freshman years, they were projected lottery picks, both those guys, and they ended up sliding to the early second round both times. Whiteside averaged almost 6 blocks a game at Marshall as a freshman. That's pretty crazy. He left after his freshman year. His stock really fell because they said, he's athletic and he's a big body, but he had flaws and didn't really have a post game or anything like that. And people don't necessarily love projects unless you really showing one particular skill or showing insanely high defensive upside against high competition. Whiteside was doing it at Marshall, so I think people had skepticism about that. But I'm with you, Andrew. I kind of always liked him. I think he could be a solid backup. I really liked him at Summer League this year, too. He played really well in Vegas, I thought. He had some really impressive games. He looked like he kind of understood defense a little bit more. It's always great to hear, though, when a guy who runs player personnel or has the final say on player personnel has not heard of another NBA player, though.
You know what I learned about Summer League? Guys you like at Summer League, it's kind of like, people that you date in summertime or like when you're younger at summer camp, things like that. Those flings, they're called like summer flings for a reason, and you have to just like leave that in the summertime. And once the regular season, once you get back to real life, those don't stand up to the light of day. It's like summer league love is like summer league flings.
Fine. Well, if Hassan Whiteside was a summer fling for me, then like after tonight, it was like the scene in Grease where Sandy sees Danny at the school. Because I thought this was a summer fling. No, it's way more than that. She's back. She's moved from Australia.
Oh my God.
I want to leave so bad right now. But I want to talk about Austin Rivers and this other thing.
Andrew, before we talk about Rivers, I want to say I'm surprised you didn't bring up, when talking about Blake and his defense, I'm surprised you didn't bring up how poor he's becoming closing out on shooters, too.
Yeah, that's bad, too. It's all around bad. There is a laundry. People talk about the Clippers like if they can just trade for a defensive wing, all their problems will go away and like they'll be a real contender. That's like saying like
who's that player that exists out there? That's the other thing.
Yeah, well, it's like oh, the Clippers just jumped out of a 4-story building and they have like broken bones and their like livers lacerated and they're on life support. But if we can just get them a kidney, they're gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. They just need to. There's a lot wrong with the Clippers that needs to be fixed, that can't be fixed via trade, and that's why for me personally, I think the Clippers can be a contender even without a trade because the pieces that they need to be a contender are there. It's just not functioning the way that any of us thought that it would. Like obviously, the right trade will only enhance their chances, but the trade's not the answer. Trade's a supplementary piece.
Okay, so let's talk about trades. Andrew, talk about Austin Rivers.
I don't know what to say. I don't know.
You want to get your son?
I don't know what to say about Austin Rivers.
You want to get your son, Austin Hahn, to come on to CBL in a way that's not nepotism at all and comment on it for you?
I am not for nepotism. I really question whether Doc is the one that's behind this, just because pre-game today, Dan Wojcicki of the Orange County Register, friend of the show, he asked about Austin Rivers, and Doc said that he knows that there are rumors out there and they're doing everything they can, but there's nothing really specific about Austin Rivers that they're working on. Yesterday, Adrian Wojnarowski had said that within the Clippers organization, he specifically names Dave Wall, Lawrence Frank, and Mike Woodson as the ones that are pushing Doc to go ahead and like take this chance, that don't worry about nepotism, things like that. To me, it sounds like Doc is the one that's reluctant, and that there are other forces within the organization that want to do it. I don't necessarily have issue with the trade. But if we're using this as a reason to kind of pile on Doc, I think that part is a little bit unfair. Law, you want to add on to this?
Yeah, like I'm actually not worried about the whole Doc Rivers, Austin Rivers thing. I don't think that's at play here. I would look at this as what would happen if Austin were to come here. What happens on the basketball court? We've seen Austin Rivers for 3 NBA seasons now, and we know that there's not one thing that he's proficiently good at. or even probably adequately good at. He's not necessarily a good shooter. He has been trying to develop as a point guard. That hasn't really worked out. He's not necessarily a good defender, and he's not even that good of a scorer. So what exactly are you replacing Jared Cunningham with Austin Rivers for? I mean, if you're going to use that roster spot, find a guy who has a little bit more of a chance to come in and give you some good minutes. Right now, Austin would probably come in here and struggle for 15 minutes a game, if that, and that's just a lateral move at best.
I don't see Austin Rivers as taking the 15th spot, or like, I guess particularly replacing Jared Cunningham for Austin Rivers. Jared Cunningham is fine. He's not my particular cup of tea, but that's a different story altogether. To me, I feel like if they brought Austin Rivers in, that means Jordan Farmar is going out, and so you're replacing Jordan Farmar's money with Austin Rivers, which I don't know if this is a great exercise. If you guys want to do this, go to Basketball Reference and look at Farmar's year this year and Austin Rivers' stat line for this season. They're like eerily similar. They're like 0.1 points off in PER. They have almost the same points per 36 minutes, almost the same rebounds, assists, all of that. The key difference being that Farmar is like 3 or 4% better in three-point shooting and has like a crazy three-point shooting rate, and Austin Rivers has like a much higher free throw shooting rate, but they're like basically the same player. So if that's the
Farmar is like 9 percentage points better than Rivers. Farmar is like 36 or 37%, right? Rivers from 3. Rivers is
28%.
Oh, that's okay. So that's a lot.
That's a significant difference.
That's a lot, yeah. But I mean, I guess what's their free throw rate difference?
Probably everything else is pretty similar.
And Rivers' free throw rate is way down this year compared to last year.
So, I don't, people aren't fond of Jordan Farmar either. If you're swapping the two of those individuals, I don't have. It's like it's a non-factor for me. This trade doesn't mean anything. If you're saying he's going to take the 15th spot and he's going to eat up whatever cap room they have left, and they think that he's the missing piece, then I have issues with that. But if he's replacing someone else on the roster, doesn't mean anything.
That's kind of what I said yesterday on Twitter, that I don't even have any opinions on what this trade would be until we see what the ensuing move is. Now, if the ensuing move is that there is no other move that's going to come in conjunction with this, then yeah, that's a problem. Then it's not a good move because he's not going to really help. If it's for patch-up work to for another trade or another deal they're trying to work out, and this would allow them to make that sort of deal, then it's not the worst thing in the world. He's not a good player per se, but Jordan Farmar is not having a good year. I do think the problem is that at least Farmar can shoot. Farmar also has, although he does have a player option for next year, but he hits free agency next year, and Rivers, you'd be tied up for another couple of years with him if he's a disappointment.
That's backwards. Farmar has a player's option next year.
Yeah.
So he'll theoretically opt in. Rivers, his option was declined, so he's going to be a free agent this offseason.
Oh, Rivers' option was declined.
Yeah.
That's right. Rivers' third year, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Well then. Completely negates the point. Andrew, this is why we have you.
That's why I'm here. I'm here until I'm not here.
All right, so Austin Rivers, what a guy. We have no nepotism jokes. No one has any.
I want to show this thing. This is the thing that I'm assuming that you alluded to earlier with about talking with Patrick James about. Let me see if I can bring this up.
Well, you weren't there.
I know what you're talking about. I know what everyone's talking about always.
You're tapped into my computer.
Buddy, don't act like I don't know what's going on. Is this the thing that you guys are talking about? some kind of fabrication of this.
That's exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah, maybe this trade proposal that I had suggested yesterday, when this Austin Rivers news first started to hit the airwaves.
Hey, Andrew, why don't you say it out loud, so in case someone's not using video?
So the thing that I had suggested is, what if Boston took Jordan Farmar, C.J. Wilcox, and Chris Douglas Roberts in exchange for Austin Rivers and Jay Crowder? Naturally, maybe like a second-round pick or something would have to be involved with that, and Jordan Farmar would have to go to a third team because Boston is just not taking any money. They're not going to run the risk that Jordan Farmar opts into his player's option. So those are two kinks that have to be worked out. This trade could not happen as one large trade because Austin Rivers and Jay Crowder have to be traded separately because they've just been traded. But like that's a non-issue either because that's relatively easy to figure out. But this would be the bones of the deal: Jay Crowder and Austin Rivers for Jordan Farmar, C.J. Wilcox, and Chris Douglas Roberts. La, what do you think about that?
First of all, getting Jay Crowder for the Clippers, I'm really just thinking that he's more comparable to Jared Dudley, and I know Crowder's a young, bigger body who's improved his jump shot. He's played for and been in and out of Carlisle's doghouse for the last couple of years. The question for me would be, who the hell would want to take Jordan Farmar's contract? If it's not going to be Boston and LA is trying to shill, I mean, I don't see how a third team would want to take that contract on. Would it be a solution? Would it be something I would want to see? Yeah, but I can totally see Jay Crowder being out of Doc's rotation, just like he was in and out of Carlisle's.
I like Crowder. I think he's good. I think he's a good defender. I think he's got some defensive versatility. We can guard 3s and 4s. He's pretty good on the perimeter. He's got good feet. And, like, that's not a high-risk trade. Yeah, I mean, you totally bring up a flaw there, which is going to be somewhat difficult to unload Farmar. But I mean, that's not a high-risk deal if you're getting in Crowder. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, whatever. So I would enjoy something like that. I mean, that's not a needle-pushing trade, obviously.
No, not at all.
Part of the reason that the Clippers are in this position right now is because they're really bad at improving on the margins, right? I mean, they've done a poor job of improving on the fringes of where contenders are supposed to improve. They don't have a good ninth man, per se.
I wouldn't say that they're really bad at improving on the margins so much as their gambles did not pay off.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, however you want to phrase it, their margins are weak. Their ninth man, their 10th man, their 11th man, not good. And
no, seventh and 8th man aren't good right now.
What do you say?
Your 7th and 8th man aren't good right now.
Yes, this is very true. But in that sense, it hasn't really worked. And if Crowder can be a quality 9th guy, then, you know, I'm cool with that. He's still young. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to blossom into anything different than he is right now, but he can improve on the skills that he's already good at, become a very good perimeter defender as opposed to a good perimeter defender. He can get smarter. He's a smart player. He's a Big East guy, so I like him.
Let me phrase it this way. So Law doesn't know who would take Jordan Farmar's contract to make such a deal work. Fred, what do you think the real possibility of that trade construction would be?
I mean, you obviously need the third team because Boston is not taking on 2015-16 salary. Right. Like you said, the Farmar player option provides an issue there. What would be the third team? Who needs a solid backup point guard?
Would you characterize Jordan Farmar as a solid backup point guard?
No.
No, not at all. Okay, but who has, let me rephrase, who has a really bad backup point guard and may want to switch things up if they could gobble up Farmar or something?
Pelicans?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you need a third team, I guess you could just say, like, Philly and send them a second-round pick, and maybe they'll be into it. That's like the patented thing. Yeah, maybe New Orleans. That seems like a Dell Demps thing, right? Trading for Jordan Farmar.
Right.
see, real quick, what's interesting about anything Philly related is that before the Austin Rivers discussion, we were talking about the Roten possibility of coming over here. I mean, it was even in Tony's head where he was like, yeah, I know that there are Clippers scouts watching me. And, I mean, Tony can't shoot either, okay? Roten's like one of the worst shooters, and he's highly turnover prone. But the downfield thing that they were talking about, Austin Rivers, that's Roten. Roten's a guy who can actually game change. So, I mean, that would be interesting if Farmer had to go to Philly when the real guy that I think the Clippers would have wanted and could have been an interesting piece would be Roten. But that's neither here nor there.
I'd much rather have Roten than Austin Rivers, right? Andrew?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm a big Roten fan. Talk about rolling the dice though. Like Roten is like I don't know what is up with these like Seattle guys, these Washington guys, but they just like are no conscience basketball players. Like he's going to make some jaw-dropping plays, and then he's gonna do some like between the legs, like no look over the back, or like behind the back pass that goes into like the fifth stand as well. Like there's just
come out, man. That's what it is.
There's just some craziness that they're capable of. Like there's some real dice rolling if you're gonna make Tony Roten a rotation player on a team that's looking to contend, because he's not a guy that's settled down yet. He's still trying to like carve out his place in the league. Which isn't to say that I wouldn't want him for the Clippers. Tony Roten is, stud play. I like him. I'm a big Roten believer, but like that would also I would have a separate set of questions if Roten was on the Clippers.
He's only 21, Roten.
Hey, I want him. I'm just saying it's not like it wouldn't be like a slam dunk deal. It wouldn't be a home run.
Yeah, of course. Also, third team I was thinking of that maybe could work with Sacramento too, considering Ramon Sessions is really let down, is losing playing time, is having a poor season by his standards. And Sacramento, Pete D'Alessandro doesn't really care about long and bad contracts. So
that's kind of Ramon Sessions in Sacramento is kind of my point when I rephrase the Clippers' margin moves as their gambles not paying off. When Ramon Sessions went to Sacramento, what do you go for, like $2 million, $3 million? A lot of people said, like, oh, that's not a bad move for Sacramento. Ramon Sessions is actually probably going to compete with Darren Collison for the starting point guard position, and Ramon Sessions has been terrible. And the Clippers kind of gambled that Jordan Farmar was going to be, like, his three-point shooting numbers and things like that would keep up for one more year, that Spencer Hawes would not necessarily be good as last year, but, somewhere in that vicinity, and Spencer Hawes hasn't been that good. Epi Udoh was going to be a defensive player that he hasn't shown. He must not be showing anything in practice because he's not getting into the games. And Chris Douglas-Roberts had a very good season, very respectable season to be a rotation player last year, and Douglas-Roberts hasn't made it onto the court either. A lot of that's 4 strikes in a row. When if any one of those really pan out, then the Clippers aren't in the bind that they're in.
Yeah, but at some point you got to say there's talent misevaluation, because there's a theme, and there are a lot of moves that aren't that at the time you're just kind of shaking your head. I mean, they could have had a guy. We talk about rim protection issues and that kind of stuff, and now Hawes and Blake can't play together. And I know this was after they had already signed Hawes, but they could have had a guy like Radulica, like Radulica there, and that was and that kind of those kinds of things are not necessarily gambles. Those are failures to recognize what a team needs. And maybe this is a little bit hindsight, although when that Dudley trade went down, I can't really think of anyone who thought, oh, great move for the Clippers, especially considering they used that cap room to sign no one who plays at all.
The irony of that Dudley deal, I think. Let's for argument's sake that Carlos Delfino was healthy, and so the exact bones of that deal are the same. That the Clippers send a first-round pick in Jared Dudley for Radulica and Carlos Delfino, and they keep Radulica and Delfino. Like Radulica and Delfino are probably exactly what this Clippers team needs if Delfino's healthy. Like everyone would be hailing, hey, it's a lot to give up for Delfino and Raduljica, but they made the right move because Delfino is a more than viable small forward, and Raduljica is like he's a pretty good offensive big man, I think.
Yeah, and he's not a terrible defender.
Not terrible.
He's fine. He's like a fine backup.
It's amusing to me as all.
That is true, man. Law, send us off.
Well, that's it for the 9-game homestand for the Clippers. They went 6-3, and that's okay. It could have been better. The 3 losses were to a very good Toronto team, a very good Atlanta team, and this happened. Last time the Clippers had to go on the road after an unimpressive home stand, it was the Bulls loss. So maybe the Clippers are going to go on the road starting Wednesday and get some big wins again.
And we're not sure about scheduling for this week, but we'll let you know. You can follow us on Twitter at ClipperBlog or at ClipperBlog Live for updates so you can know what's going on. For Andrew Hahn, for Law Murray, I'm Fred Katz, and we'll see you soon. Good night.